When people told Reddit their past, their stories, explained themselves with Reddit stories, foretold the future. Not really. But foretold the future with Reddit stories. The best place by the monitor was kept for the Reddit teller. Welcome back to your cozy spot by the screenlight. Today, I have some new tales to impart with some interesting outcomes.
Malicious compliance. One might ask yourself, what is malicious compliance? Is it simply being compliant, but maliciously? No, not that at all. Is it simply being malicious without any compliance? Well, almost there, maybe. I suppose you'll just have to find out in tonight's episode of The Reddit Teller. Tonight's tales of maliciousness start off with one from Rustic Whiskey. The title of this tale being, "Get Rid of My Vacation." Have fun replacing me. I originally posted this as a comment on another thread, but recently it's needed its own limelight. I worked at a company that gave out exorbitant amounts of vacation. Anyone who worked there for 25 plus years received 8 weeks of vacation and 2 weeks of personal time. This was a family-owned company, but rather large. We ran 3 shifts totaling around 250 plus people. Enter Jimmy. Jimmy was a grizzled old man. He started at the company when he was just 20. Now, he was 63 and gave absolute 0 shifts. Jimmy also knew how to make a specific part for our product, him and one other higher up in the office. One day, the plant owner comes out and announces he's selling to a corporation. He's older and ready to retire. He promises that there will be very little change and wishes us all well. The new company comes in and immediately goes after many of the great benefits we had. The first thing they do is cut everyone's max vacation down to 4 weeks and do completely away with personal time. Anyone who's maxed out had until December 31st of that year to use it up, and they wouldn't pay it out. They then go into the office and clean house, firing anyone who's close to retirement, including Jimmy's backup. But they also do away with one very important rule. You no longer have to get vacation approved. You can just call in and take it. Jimmy is pissed, and they know it. They realize he's the only one in the building that can do his job now, so they hire a new kid for him to train, most likely to permanently replace Jimmy. So, Jimmy does what anyone would do. He calls in the first training day for the new hire and lets us know that he's going to use all of his PTO at once and promptly takes 10 weeks off. We had a backstock of parts he had made, so it wasn't too unnerving. But for 10 weeks, Jimmy went and applied to other jobs, found one, and started. Fast forward 10 weeks, it's the day Jimmy's supposed to return. He doesn't. For 2 days, they tried calling him, and even went to his house. He's nowhere to be found. Finally, on day 3, he calls and resigns. Well, they lose their shift. The parts he makes are specialized and patented by the original founder. You can't just hire someone off the street to make them. What eventually happened was they had to contract the original owner to come in and teach some new hires how to make them. And when he found out what they had done, it really, really peeved him off. The last I heard of him, he charged them a 7-figure contract to teach them how to produce the parts, and they had to pony up or close down. Moral of the story, don't flip or flop with people's vacation time. A little side note, Jimmy made an electronic control module that was sealed and stayed fixed in a port unit made of a 2-part epoxy. Jimmy didn't exactly miss out on a 7-figure contract and had zero chance to take one. He left, said F 'em, and moved on. When they contacted the previous owner and explained the situation, it was basically a, "Oh, you need my help? It'll cost $1 million type of conversation. Once again, moral of the story, don't mess with people's vacation time. And I would go a step further. Promptly, don't mess with someone who you know is the only one who can make something that you need, not just want, but need to stay afloat in a company. That's just ridiculous. And you know what? I feel like Jimmy would be a really cool friend to have. Company, though? Nah, company probably sucks. Moving along the malicious compliance train, we're making a stop at Finn008 with his story, titled, "Don't Care About People Calling Me on Your Old Number. I'll sort it." This was about 10 years ago. Also, English is my second language, and I'm writing this on my phone. So, be warned. I had just moved to Australia and gotten a new phone, but as it turns out, my number was someone else's old number. Every other week, I'd get a call by a tradie who wanted to know why I wasn't on site, mate, or what I wanted done with building project ABC, etc. What's going on? Every time I explained at length that they had gotten the wrong number, and quite often folks on the other end were absolutely rude or thought I was taking a piss and insisted I answered their questions or show up on site now. I was so over it. So I Googled my old number and did some digging and eventually found out the guy who had my number before. Then his new number, and I called him. I politely explained my dilemma. I pointed out that there were 2 websites still having his old, my now new, number, and if he could please change this and let his contacts know about his new number and to delete the old one as it was getting quite tedious for me. By the time I had used my number for work, visa applications, and landlords and friends, and changing it, it would have been a huge pain. I explained all of that. Well, of course, he was just as pleasant as most of his contacts and told me something along the lines of, "Listen, I don't give a flying F, mate. That's not my freaking problem. Get flipped. Sort your own shot out, mate." Well, the universe provides, and so I got a great opportunity to just do that only a few weeks later. I received a call in the early hours of one morning by another disgruntled guy telling me he was early and demanding to know where I wanted to put sand down and how to get in. I asked what sand and was told he had a full truckload of sand as ordered and no one was on site and it was all fenced off. Very briefly did I think about launching into my explanation, but I was tired and over it. And then I realized the opportunity provided. I snapped back at him with no uncertainty. "Mate, it's all good. Dump it all right in the driveway. Front of the fence. We'll sort it out when we get there." The guy went quiet and then said, You sure, mate? It's a lot of sand. I promptly responded, absolutely sure, mate. Thanks a lot. He went quiet again and just said, all right then, boss, and hangs up. Well, I go back to bed, snoozing for another hour with a big smile until my phone rings again and I see it's old mate with his new number who I had saved when I called him a few weeks ago. I pick up rather chipper, and he doesn't waste any time launching into a series of swear words and how he has no access to the site and that he has to move a literal ton of sand by hand, and whether or not I told the sand guy to dump it all there. I replied, he told me to sort this all out myself. This is me sorting it out. You can remove the numbers and let your contacts know or not. Totally up to you, mate. He was fuming. Called me a few more choice words, promising to find me and a lot more before we ended the conversation. However, the numbers disappeared from the internet rather quickly after that, and I never got another call again. I still have my number, and every time I see a truck with sand, I chuckle to myself, thinking of the guy moving a ton of sand by hand and losing a few hours of labor because he was a douchebag and couldn't be bothered sending a few texts. The moral of the story here is change your numbers, update your contacts, and also don't piss off an Australian who has nothing better to do than make sure that he dumps a ton of sand in your driveway. Nothing but sandy cheeks for days. This next story comes from Princess G66, titled, I Don't Care If He's Dead, Put Him on the Phone. I was sent here on a recommendation from another sub with a story you guys might like. First-time poster on mobile, etc. My father died on Father's Day in 2012. He was divorced and living alone, and I'm an only child. So that means that I had to wrap up all of his affairs. This story centers around us trying to get his utilities canceled. I called in to see what we had to do to get them to cancel. The lady I spoke with on the phone said to send in his certified death certificate. I sent in the certified copy of his death and the certificate the next day. The next month, I got another bill. I called in again, and a new woman answered. She said that because I wasn't on the account, that she had to speak with the account holder. I informed her that the account holder was, well, dead. But she wouldn't budge. I had to make an appointment with a supervisor so she could speak to him herself in person. I showed up at the Board of Public Utilities with another death certificate and his ashes in the clear bag that they returned his remains in. I plopped them down in the center of her desk and said, when she talked to him, to tell him that I love him, for me. The woman went pale, flew out of her chair, and called the cops. When they showed up, she claimed I had assaulted her. And yes, my dad's remains were still sitting in the middle of her desk with the death certificate. The cops questioned me as to why I would do that, and I told them the whole story. The supervisor's boss was called in, and they all stepped away from the desk for a private talk. While they were talking, the cops came over to talk to me. They said that I shouldn't take human remains out in public, but there was no laws that were broken. I said that I agreed with them and that it was extreme, but she insisted to speak to him, I gestured to the remains, in person. By then, they were done talking between themselves. The supervisor's boss kissed up to me and got it taken care of. But the story is not over yet. Oh, no, sir. I had to call back a few days later to get utilities back in the house in my name. When the person on the phone saw the address and my name, I was immediately put on hold. The supervisor's boss that finally helped me got on the phone. She sucked up to me and waived all the fees that came along with setting up the utilities. Just as the call was ending, she informed me that she was again so sorry for the employee's lack of compassion. She said that the employee was terminated, and again, she is so very sorry. I'd make a joke, but honestly, it would probably be dead in the water. I don't know about you all, but I'm feeling quite malicious at this point. However, we're not done yet. Our next story comes from Aria Venn, titled, "Sorry, ma'am. Of course, your son can try the 7M Shoe hot sauce." I work in a hot sauce store in a busy outlet mall. We're a well-liked, locally owned business and have many loyal returning customers. But at this particular location, we also get a lot of tourists who are curious about our challenges or challenge items or Hot Ones products. We have a large variety of samples available every day. Literally, like 100 hot sauces, 50 plus barbecue wing sauces just out on the table, and we can pull out another 50 plus bottles or so from the fridge if one's open. Every so often, we get people who come into the store and ask to try the hottest sauce. They love jalapenos in their burritos and have eaten habaneros straight, and they're ready to enter the ring, swallow some sauce, and gain the admiration of a couple friends and bystanders at the cost of a stomachache. We usually try to guide them to the 10th hottest sauce in the store, burn them with it, and move on to something mild or medium suited to their taste. Today, while I was selling items to the people who were actually buying things, a 10 or so year old boy enters the store. I always get wary when children enter the store alone because it's full of glass bottles. They usually dart straight for the shelves and pick something up, but this child came barreling towards me like a bullet. While I make change for the couple buying some hot sauce, he calls out to me.
Excuse me.
In a horrendous whiny pitch. I ignore the rude interruption and continue my conversation with customers. He parrots it again 12 times or so, back to back. As I thank these people and get them out of the store, finally I turn to him and ask, "How can I help you?" Where the hell are these kids' parents?
Hi, I would like to try your hottest sauce in the store.
Oh God, not this again. I'm not dealing with this. Not with a 10-year-old kid. I explained to him that the hottest sauce on the table is Hellboy, Right Hand of Doom. It's spiked with a 6.66 million Scoville extract. And honestly, if you're not experienced with this kind of stuff, more than just a tiny bit can really mess you up for a good part of your day. Take my word for it. I explained to him that he has to be 19 years old to try it and to sign a waiver, which is BS, but I'm off in 30 minutes or so screw this kid. And instead, guide him to a tasty fermented habanero that he coughed his eyes out on before, explaining to me that he could handle the right hand of doom because his dad eats spicy peppers with him all the time. Okay, I say. He leaves. Thank God. 15 minutes later, I'm interrupted by another customer. This time, a gigantic woman in a blue blouse. She sat next to my table like a giant blueberry, blocking up 20% of my floor space.
Excuse me.
The apple doesn't fall far. The customers I'm with are polite and excuse me to speak to her.
You didn't let my son try the hot sauce.
I explained to her that it has extract in it several hundred times hotter than anything he has ever eaten, and that I can cause him severe discomfort, and that I will not let him try it in my store. I explain that she's free to purchase the sauce and have him try it at home if she so wishes. She explains to me that she married a Mexican man, and that I wouldn't believe the things we ate in New Mexico City, where he grew up. When I asked what they had eaten there, she told me,
Things hotter than anything that we have in the store.
well, at this point, her daughter interrupts her conversation. I kid you not.
Excuse me?
What? I'm getting annoyed. I was annoyed from the second I saw the kid, and now he's back 20 minutes later with 3 of them.
Why do you sell Valentina? It's not even a hot sauce.
Jesus Christ. Aren't you from Mexico? It says freaking salsa picante on the dang bottle. It's $5.50. I'm off at $6. I've had enough. How about this? You can try the sauce, and if it's as mild as you think, I'll let him try it. She agreed and grabbed her sample stick. I reached for the right hand of doom and unscrewed the cap, its nuclear aroma sending memories of aches to my stomach. As she goes to dip the stick into the sauce, I warn her to only take a small amount. She grins at me and dips the stick all the way into the sauce. Trap card, bitch. She slaps it into her mouth. Immediately, she looks uneasy before she throws herself into pure agony. She's coughing, swinging her head back and forth, trying desperately to speak, but she cannot muster any words. She dropped her sample stick in all the chaos. After a solid few minutes of coughing and dry heaving, she manages a single word. Water! I explained to her that water won't help her now. My relief walks through the door just in time to witness the finish. She tells me that the only reason she's coughing is because
It went down the wrong pipe.
she then immediately vomits into our garbage can. She apologizes for
Spitting up.
like she didn't just rocket launch half a liter of chum into my trash can, and then leaves without saying anything else. I tossed the trash out with a smile on my face and clocked out. Now that's a spicy story. A spicy story. All I can say is I kind of wish that this ended with the child trying the hot sauce. And it even reminds me of a story for another time of a personal matter that I even did involving hot sauce. But as I said, that is a tale for another episode. Thank you for joining me by the monitor. And to everyone listening and enjoying this content, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe to hear more of these stories stemming from tragic to comedic to downright horrific. And as always, see you in the next chapter.